that we have the shell and primer, we can think of some other modifications we're going to do to the car. So on the left we have the original junior seat, and on the right we have a seat from a later model, which is a 1969 to 1970 Series 1 GTV. One of the favorite features about these seats is the headrest. So only on the European models, only one seat had a headrest, and it looked something like this. To be able to use the original rails on the new seats, we have to check the spacing of the bolts. So when we measured, we noticed that the new seats have a different spacing of 30 centimeters, which is different from the original ones. So what we'll do is we're going to simply add a hole on the top here, 30 centimeters apart. So as we are trying the seats, it would be a good time to rebuild these seat rails. We noticed that some of them were binding, and one of these rollers fell out of the rails. So we're going to take it apart and put it back in the right order. So to take the seat rails apart, we'll have to press this pin out, and that will allow the ball bearings on the side here to come out. We will also be able to pull the roller that's in between the two rails. So while we have the rails apart, we noticed that over time the ball bearings got impressed into the rail here. So what we're going to do is just file and smooth out the rail so the seat can move smoothly. So now it's time to reassemble the rail back together, and it's worth noting the right position of the rollers. So they have to be one at the back and one in between these two dimples here at the center of the rail. And they have to mate with these two other dimples over here. So all these stops will limit the movement of the rail. After we put the two rails together, we're going to insert the bearings from the back side, and then add the cotter pin after to prevent the bearings from coming out again. So after securing the cotter pin in place, we can try the rail. So the next challenge in putting in these seats is to add a hole over here. Basically the floor pans have been replaced, so there's only provisions for the newer seats, which are wider. For our early seats, which are narrower, we're going to only have to add a threaded hole over here. So we measured off the front one, and then we're just going to make sure that both rails will be parallel when we put them in place. Another mechanical part we need to address is trying the foot pedals in place. So there is this gasket that goes around the pedals. However, it seems to be a common problem that it's really difficult to get these pedals over into the shafts here, being that the slots are too narrow and the pedals are too wide. So to overcome this problem, we're going to take a bit of a drastic measure and cut off the pedals and make them removable. So we're going to thread the area inside the pedal here and use the spacer, which will be welded to the pedal itself, making it removable and easy to assemble the rubber grommet. So So in order to weld the pedal in its original position, we made this little template here. So it's a bit faint, but we marked the outline of the pedal in pencil, and we also bent the angle to match the pedal here. So once we cut it, we'll have a location on where to put it back again with the screws. So after lining up the pedal, we cut it off and then we weld it onto the new plate. So what we're doing is we're threading the pedal part and leaving a clearance hole in the plate, and we're doing one hole at a time. So like this, one bolt will keep the alignment, and then we can drill exactly in the right position for the next one. We also lose the lock nut at the back to secure the pedal well in place. So the first hole has been tapped. Now we're going to tap the second hole. So tapping is the process of cutting a thread into an existing part, which we're going to use a tap. So there's a standard size. We're going to use an M6 bolt. That means we're going to drill with a 5mm hole. They don't go linearly, so if you're going to use, for example, an M5 thread, you have to drill with 4.2. There's a standard chart for those other sizes. Now we drill the second hole and the clutch pedal is finished. It's worth noting we just need to leave a little bit of a gap here between the pedal and the bracket for the rubber on the foot pedal to go through. So we're repeating the same process on the other pedal. However, we noticed that the lever on this one is a little bit narrower. So our plates were cut the same size. So what we did, we just built up some welding to fill in the gap. We also left a little gap here for the brake pedal cover. Another part of the gasket cover is this plate here. So when we tried it the first time in place, it didn't fit well at all. I think it's meant for left-hand drive cars, so with this car being right-hand drive, the floor pan is a little bit narrower and it fouled against this area. So what we did is we flattened it out, found the first hole of reference, and then gave it the shape to match the floor. Since the floor is new, we'll also need to add the holes for the other 3 holes here. So after trying the plate in place, I brought the rubber gasket in, and I noticed that the 3 holes lined up quite closely. I screwed those in place, and then I had to stretch the rubber and align the screws for the top holes, as the rubber tends to push things around. Now it fits quite well. Okay, it's not a perfect factory fit, but very close. So here we're looking at the car from the bottom, and we're going to go through a quick explanation of how the pedals work. So this master cylinder works with hydraulic oil and would be connected to the brakes. And over here it would be connected to the brake pedal. So that is the same, we just renewed the master cylinder to a new one. So with the clutch, it's a different situation. Originally the car had a cable clutch, which was operated with this bell crank. So once the clutch goes back and forward, a cable would be pulled through here that's connected to the gearbox. I don't have the gearbox with the clutch, with the cable type, so now we're going to convert it to a hydraulic clutch, and this will be the modification that follows. So the cable operated mechanism we've seen earlier will be replaced by this hydraulic cylinder over here. I used one from the later models which fit perfectly, and it actually bolts in the right place next to the brake one. So the next modification will be to use this lever over here, add a threaded part and weld it to this, to the link rod, so it will be connected to the pedal. So to fill in the distance from the master cylinder to the link, I machine down this adapter. So the front is stebbed and goes in this way, and the back is threaded with the same thread as on the cylinder. So the last component to complete the conversion from mechanical clutch to hydraulic clutch is this part. So we added a bracket, and this will be the reservoir that will hold the fluid for the clutch. So this is a tool that's very useful to put threads in thin sheets. These are called riv nuts, and there's different sizes. So what they do is it looks like a pop rivet, but it leaves a threaded insert inside. There's different sizes, so then we just use the appropriate bit for the size we use. In this case, we're going to use the M5 ones, which are the smallest.